Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. Jimmy on the beat, boy. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, John J. II, and I'm here with our college sports insider for GSN, Chuck Parker. Chuck, how are we doing today, buddy?
Doing great, John. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, brother. Got a great slate ahead of us. Going to go over some week 3 games in the college football scene, and I'll also go into some week 4 stuff. So got a great slate ahead of us tonight, man. Really excited. Got some outliers that we got to address, and there's some things we got to get out in the open, especially regarding the Spartan Dogs. So be watchful for that. All the viewers out there, all the listeners, thank you so much. Wherever you're watching or listening from, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. So let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about week 3. Let's jump in. Let's talk about Oklahoma against Nebraska. Absolute blowout. 6th ranked Oklahoma facing off against Nebraska, which was historically a great rivalry. It's kind of, went to the wayside as of late. But Chuck, what do you got to say about that game?
I just wish Nebraska was good again. I mean, they joined the Big Ten. It was an awesome thing to see, and they've kind of been disappointing ever since. I was one who thought Scott Frost was the problem, and I took Nebraska with the points because, hey, interim coach, get him juiced up, big rival coming into town, and I was wrong. I think Nebraska's just bad. They've got a culture problem over there that they've got to figure out, or we might never see the Big Reds good again, which, I mean, that all of college football loses until Nebraska can figure out what's wrong with their program.
Yeah, 100%. You look at that line, minus 10.5. I think you said you got it at, you got Nebraska with the points, plus 11. I think it wound up closing at there close to kickoff there. But, you look at this spread. I mean, that's not that big of a spread if you're taking Oklahoma, right? Now, their program is in a rebuilding phase after Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, their leading quarterback, moved to the West Coast and took their talents to USC. But, I mean, they still got a solid program. You can't deny that. But It's a great rivalry. It always historically has been. And then in these, types of games where they're rivalries, almost anything can happen. And, it's just one of those things where you never know what's really going to happen pre-kickoff. You're expecting Nebraska to kind of pick themselves up from the dust and show up and play a game of football. But that was too much to ask on Saturday. And unfortunately, it didn't go in Nebraska's favor, and it was by a long and large margin that Oklahoma and the Sooners took it. So is what it is. Just a quick note, the Sooners are the current favorite to win the Big 12 at plus 160, followed by Texas and the Longhorns at plus 320. Then Oklahoma State is plus 450 to win the Big 12. So watch out for that for all you futures bettors. I'm sure you can still get some live odds on that one. So keep that in mind. Moving forward, let's talk about Cal and Notre Dame. Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman got his first win against Cal and the Golden Bears. That was kind of a nail biter. Notre Dame got it done in the fourth quarter, scoring 10 to Cal's 0 in the fourth quarter. And that was a nail biter of a game. I thought Notre Dame possibly would have went 0-3 for the first time since 2007, but that didn't happen. That wasn't the case. They squeezed out the win, and now we're sitting at 1-2 after opening the season at 5th in the nation. What are your takeaways here on this game, Chuck?
I think Marcus Freeman's in trouble. Notre Dame isn't a program that's used to losing, and we haven't seen one good game from them yet. They have the talent. They just can't seem to find ways to win. And you look at their upcoming schedule. It's a hard schedule in college football. And do we trust them? I mean, they're already underdogs at UNC this week, which UNC is terrible. They have no defense. Yeah, they can throw the ball, but no defense. Then they've got BYU in Vegas, Syracuse, Clemson, USC all still on the schedule. So, I mean, at this point, I can see Notre Dame finishing with a losing record and not even making a bowl game. And that jumping question is, what happens next in Notre Dame? Are they going to stake with him? I mean, they're a win now program. So I just think Notre Dame's they're in trouble, and Marcus Freeman's in trouble. Tommy Rees is in trouble. So it'll be really interesting to see how they bounce back from, two really, really bad games.
Yeah, you look at Notre Dame, you look at the Brian Kelly era, and they're a team that is built around winning, right? There's certain teams in the college football scene, in the FBS, that are just built on winning programs. Their program is built on winning, and for them to succeed, they have to win, right? And that sounds obvious, but not every program is built on those types of morals and values. Notre Dame is one of those programs, and Marcus Freeman has been thrown to the wolves early on in games where he should be winning considerably. He's either losing them or winning by the skin of his teeth. Not a good sign when you're moving into the meat and potatoes of your schedule. Got some great teams coming up, and underdogs against UNC. Those are all red flags. You got to watch out for all that stuff. So I'm worried for him, but at the same time, natural selection is a very real thing in the college football scene. So we'll see what happens, and we'll have to roll with the punches along with them. Keep a close eye on the Fighting Irish in this week. So moving on, let's talk about BYU Oregon. This obviously was a game that worried some bettors. It was somewhat of a trap game. Obviously, BYU coming off their win against Baylor the week previous made me want to take BYU. But, you look at the record, you look at the ranking, you can kind of get caught up in the numbers a little bit, and you kind of get caught up in the facade of all the numbers and statistics that are constantly being thrown at us that we didn't have years ago. And Oregon and Coach Lanning wound up coming out with a win and covering the spread pretty comfortably at home. What do you have to say about this game?
So I think BYU is in the worst spot ever. I mean, they came up such an emotional win against Baylor and all the overtimes without their top two wide receivers who still sat against Oregon. So I think it was just a really hard spot for them to go to Oregon, a very hard place to play and pull it off. And I also think we've kind of underestimated Oregon. They got smashed, obliterated, destroyed, all of the descripting words you want against Georgia. But I think we may have all underestimated how good Georgia is. Georgia, I think this year is going to be a buzzsaw and Oregon happened to be the first piece that went down. And Oregon in the Pac-12, I don't know, the Pac-12 is like weird to me. Their schedule isn't great. They still have Utah. They got Washington, Utah back to back. They both are at home, but I don't know where I land on Oregon yet. I need a few more games, but this was a very, very good statement win for them to tell the nation that they're still here, even after getting decimated by Georgia.
Yeah, 100%, and I think Georgia has never really reached the same stature of a team like Alabama, right? You never put them on the same pedestal, even though you look at their track record, it's very similar. And, the balance can be tipped in either way real easily. But they just don't receive that hype. They don't receive that aura of light around the G, around the Bulldogs that everyone expects to see that maybe they deserve to have. And I think that we did underestimate Georgia in their greatness, maybe. So just because they won the chip, I think a lot of people have pushed that to the wayside. People are still looking at teams like Alabama, and other big powerhouse teams, SEC teams, to rise to the top and to receive a lot of that hype going down the stretch. And we'll see a lot more of that. That'll really come into the light, into the forefront as we get down to the back nine of the season. So look forward to that. But the Ducks, man, the Ducks, I guess they are still a powerhouse. They are historically a team that is built on winning as well. You look at historical Oregon Ducks teams. They're built on winning programs. So this was kind of a big outlier to cover this spread, to win by such a margin. Yes, it was at home, and BYU wasn't maybe expecting to play with that type of atmosphere, especially after coming off the win at home, winning by the skin of their teeth against the Baylor Bears. But let's be honest, they came unprepared. They didn't show up. They must have stayed up late and threw a couple back the night before. Who knows? So
I don't think the
that
Mormons
was
do that.
yeah. I think from our experience over at the bars, I think we've seen quite a few athletes wearing the green and white down there. Don't mean to incriminate anybody. I'm talking about back when I went there back in the day. But hey, that's the boys are going to be boys, and you can't doubt them for that. So that's all I got to say.
I just love the Pac-12 is going to do this again. They're going to cannibalize themselves. Oregon's probably. I think Oregon's going to take a bad loss somewhere. I think we're going to talk about it later. I think USC is in a tricky spot right now. Like at some point, they're going to lose a playoff team, and of weight only the Pac-12 can, and that's why I love this sport.
That's why it's so great. That's why we involve ourselves so much into it. We spill our bank accounts into our sports books apps, and we just we test our luck every single week. And let me tell you, Chuck, you sent me a breakdown for your bet slips, and you did it last
Oh,
week.
I hope you
And
didn't follow that. I hope you didn't
I
follow that.
Hey, I didn't follow. Hey, I'm not saying I followed it, but I like the breakdown. I like the setup. So I want to see another one of those this week. I hope you have time to do it, and every week subsequent, because that was a great breakdown. And I think you can, if you don't take it as gospel, maybe don't take it as gospel directly, but you look at it as a reference. And I think you look at
Oh
it,
yeah.
take it all with a grain of salt, and just a great layout, man. Well done.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm working on it right now. I already have a few plays I like, but yeah, bad week for me last week. But hey, that's probably what happens when you bet Michigan State like 3 different ways.
Hey, man, we weren't the only ones that took Michigan State in the Spartans. We'll talk about that one here in a second. Something, too, I was talking to one of our other colleagues, Smitty, in the chat, and I was talking to him. I was like, you can do all your research. You can do all this statistics, all this reading up on teams. If that team, this goes for NFL, tennis, Russian table tennis, everything. If you do your homework and you look at these games, you look at the players, you look at, all the statistics, you kind of add them up, throw them into the algorithm, whatever you want to do. If those teams and those players don't show up and they're not ready to play that day, then your bet's just not going to hit. You could have the best analysis, the best, read ups, write ups, whatever you want in the world. If they don't show up to play, your bet's probably not going to hit. And that's really not the bettor's fault at the end of the day. And that's why you see so many of these analysts on big name TV that are so wrong week after week. And I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you, Chuck. I don't know how they do it, but you see it all the time. You see it everywhere. Crazy stuff out here. So let's move on. Let's talk about these. Let's finish up these recaps. Arkansas got the win this week. That was kind of automatic, and it's just one of those games where they're going to keep pushing on, moving on to 3-0. Let's move on. Let's forget about that game. Not really worthy of our time. Let's talk about Washington MSU. So MSU going in 11th ranked in the nation. Both teams 2-0 pre-game, pre-kickoff, however you want to slice it. Really started off to, they kicked themselves in the foot and they shot themselves in the foot real early on. They're playing the Detroit Lions fourth quarter catch-up game, the Matthew Stafford special, and it just wasn't enough. You had those glimmers of hope late in the fourth quarter where it's like, you know what, maybe they can do it. Maybe they can pull it off. Maybe they can get the onside kick. But we were just hoping and praying too much. What do you got to say about this one?
I was at a wedding, so we could only watch it on a little phone screen. I didn't watch most of it because at some point I knew that the score had blown up when I had gone to get a drink or whatever. So then when I woke in the morning, I watched the first quarter. I was like, what happened? And Payton Thorne had a rocky start. So I was like, maybe he just sucked today. And to my disappointment, it's the same fucking problem we've had for the past 3 years. We cannot defend anybody. Like, I am maybe 5'11". I could go out and maybe play corner for Michigan State right now because we can't defend people. And I don't get it. I don't know how it's still been a problem. And then almost even more disappointing was the fact that we couldn't get a run game against Washington. Like, I don't know what our boys up front were doing, but I think I don't know. I watched the first half and I'm like, I know the story. I knew we came back. I saw the box score, but I'm like, at that point, it doesn't matter because we were getting torched for 400 yards. And I'm tired of watching us get torched like that. I miss the no-fly zone era a lot. My only one takeaway was I thought it was going to happen. That's why I bet Michigan State, obviously, other than just going here and being way too invested, was I knew Payton Thorne was going to come out this game. I think the first 2 games of the year, he knows he doesn't have to do it to win, so he got lazy and all that. But we use it too much, but I think he's got that dog in him. I think he loved being in that atmosphere, and I thought he played great. He was fighting the whole time. He was making great throws, finding Keon Coleman. So I'm not completely out, but I still want to see our defense do something and then just bully people up front.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. It was a very unfortunate display. It wasn't Michigan State football, especially on the defensive side. I thought the offense played sufficient. Did they miss a couple plays, miss a couple passes here and there? Sure, but Peyton Thorne spilled his heart out, left it out there on that field, and I thought it was a great performance from the offensive side. Other than the run game and the inside run offense was terrible,
Yeah.
terrible. You can
I
blame
think we
some
had
of
like
that on the
32
line, but
yards of that. I think like 32
unbelievable,
yards of
man.
like Broussard was like 4 for 3 in a safety. Berger was like 13 for 27. Ugh. It's one of
It's
those that
tough.
you guys have to forget. We'll talk about it later. I love Michigan State in the spot though. I'm so scared about it, but Minnesota's coming into Spartan Stadium a 3-point dog after we just got blown out. I don't think so.
Oh man, we're gonna be talking about that towards the end of the stream, so make sure you're watching out for that. But just to wrap this up real quick, we can't be getting burnt. We can't be getting burnt deep. And the last question I have for you is: this a recruiting problem? Is this a skills problem? Or is this a coaching problem? What do you think?
I still think it's a kind of mix of all. I mean, we still don't have Mel's guys in. We got Amir Speed. We have Kimbrough. I think a lot of it too is like we lost Snow and Henderson, so I think the defense is completely different with both of them in. I think Henderson's still supposed to come back. Um, X being back at safety is huge. This one I have to believe it's scheme. I don't know why. Like they're so wide open, it looks like nobody's covering them. So I think it's scheme. In all honesty, I think our players could do it, but it's also on them. Like we just got to cover some people. I still think we will. I think that's a really good. That loss sucks, but it's good that Michael Penix blows us up instead of like now we have a plan on how not to get blown up when Ohio State comes to town early October.
100%. We'll be looking out for it. Hopefully, they can lock down that secondary and get the job done. Let's move on to week 4, though. Let's talk about week 4. Let's kind of brush week 3 out of our memories for a second, and let's just kind of talk about week 4 because we got to be moving forward, and and something has to be said. The college football scene moves so fast as it already is. I mean, it moves so fast, so quick, and you have to keep looking forward. You can look back and you can recollect what happened, but you have to keep moving forward. That's the reality of the situation. That's what we have to keep doing, especially as analysts, as lovers of the game. So let's start with Maryland versus Michigan. Maryland plus 17. We'll look at some lines here. Over under 64.5. Both teams kind of start with so teams going 3-0 apiece. And Coach Harbaugh had a quote that I want to share with you. He said, "Our guys are ready to attack the next challenge," quote unquote. What do you have to say about that quote from Harbaugh?
I'll try to keep all my biases out because I hate Michigan with all my heart. I think Jim Harbaugh is the corniest guy ever, but I think they've got a pretty good team on there this year. With this game, I'm not going to bet it because Maryland might. Michigan hasn't seen anybody on defense Talia can throw it, but it might not be enough. I think Maryland doesn't have a good enough defense to stop Michigan. I think they will probably just get their way on running and passing. So yeah, I think they probably are ready for any challenge, but I still don't think this is a challenge. Maryland is classes below Michigan, and I'm. I mean, they don't really have it. Yeah, their schedule is something else. I mean, it's going to be tough when they get their first test, but I don't think this is the week they're going to get it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think they still haven't faced their true test. Even if they're getting into Big Ten play, I don't think they've seen it. They haven't really seen a true challenge yet, and that's just the fact of the matter. How do you feel about J.J. McCarthy starting over the veteran Cade McNamara?
I
But
don't
at
like
the
the
same
way
time, yeah, go ahead.
I don't like the way they handled it because it's so clear that Jim wanted to play JJ the entire time, but didn't want Cade to transfer. I get that. It's a good move, but the way they handled it was so weird because it's like, yeah, I mean, he's probably the better quarterback, but I didn't love the way he handled it. I also don't like that JJ McCarthy's like getting Heisman hype. He's played Hawaii and UConn. Like, let's pump the brakes. Let's see some Big Ten opponents on him. But I don't know. It'll be interesting because it's they must really like JJ because it's hard to go off with a quarterback that's had your best season ever and put in a relatively untested guy. So I think it'll be interesting to see when push comes to shove, when Michigan needs a drive, if they're going to miss Cade's because last year he let him down so many times. He was a great game manager. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they hope not to be in any games like that, but
100%. J.J. McCarthy, he's only thrown 34 passes in 3 games, completing 30 of them. But let's just be honest, his pass game hasn't really been tested. The pass defense and secondaries of the teams they played, they haven't really tested those wide receivers and slots. So that's just the reality of the situation. We'll see how we'll see how that whole offensive, the passing game, the passing dynamic, we'll see how that's tested moving forward. This is also a game I probably wouldn't bet. You just stay away from games like this because it's in your best interest. You don't add it to a parlay because you don't want to be hoping for any team over the other. Given that spread of 17 points, you're probably gonna be giving up an arm and a leg if you take Michigan money line. So it's just a good one to stay away from. So let's move forward here. 20th ranked Florida facing off against Tennessee, and the Volunteers ranked 11th. Spread is Florida plus 10.5, over under 62.5. The series record, Florida leads it 31-20, and Tennessee starts off in its first 3-0 start since 2016. What are your takeaways from this matchup?
I love Tennessee in this game. I think Neyland is going to be partying like it's 1998 when they won last one, the national championship. I think Rocky Top is so ready for a great team. I'm the big number scares me. I do think Tennessee is going to win. I think they could cover. I think maybe down the line something weird will happen, but I don't see any reason to take Florida because I heard this stat today. Anthony Richardson, 3 tackles on the season, 0 passing touchdowns. You and I have as many passing touchdowns as Florida does as a team, and that's not going to work against a team that can just take the top off you like Tennessee can. So my bet, I bet this game. I might probably end up taking Tennessee because I think the line's coming down a little bit too. If it ever gets even close to single digits, I'm pounding it. But I love Tennessee first half -6.5. I think under Heupel, their head coach, I think they outscore teams like 64-9 in the first quarter. So I just expect them Tennessee to start hot, blow the top off, and then I'm a little worried a backdoor could happen, but I think Tennessee comes out rocking in that 3:30 kick into the Checkered Stadium and blows Florida out of the water to start.
Yeah, I think so. I think Billy Napier, I don't think he's ready for the Tennessee Volunteers, and they're another team that's built on winning. Florida is too, but they don't have that chemistry, they don't have that structure, especially in the coaching end, and the players too. They're kind of moving them around, don't really know who's playing who's playing where, and it's kind of a mess over there in Florida right now. They're kind of in shambles. I think their win against Utah in the opener was a fluke. But that's neither here nor there. That's going a little bit too far into the past, but we still got to kind of bring it up because it's something that's going to affect the modern day era of this season. So I agree with you, man. Take Tennessee. That spread's coming down. If it goes down below 10, like Chuck said, I like Tennessee against the spread. Over under, touching it, 62.5, or staying away from that?
I haven't bet it. It's enticing. I do think Tennessee's going to get to probably 30 plus, and it's just – does Tennessee just decide to stop the run because I don't trust Florida passing?
Yeah, neither do I. Let's move on. USC against Oregon State. This is a game. This is my featured game of the week that I'm most excited about, other than the Minnesota MSU game. 7th-ranked USC. So you got Lincoln Riley, and you got the quarterback over there too, Caleb Williams, coming over, playing at Oregon State, and both teams too 3-0 start the season. Oregon State still stands unranked. Spread is Oregon State +6, over under 70.5. What are your takeaways here?
I didn't look a ton in this game because this game scares me a lot. I'm not going to bet it. I think it's a really tough spot for USC. You're going to Pullman in the late kick, and they've been a machine. But I mean, I think Pullman's one of the weirdest. I was going to say Pullman. I don't know. Oregon State is the weirdest spot to go. That's where teams go to die. And like I said earlier, the Pac-12 cannibalizes itself. I think I even saw this at like 5.5 right now, and that line makes no sense to me. Like it's a trap. I don't know which way it's a trap, so I'm probably just going to stay out of it. I think USC could be good, but it's been a lot of hype for Lincoln Riley's first like go around, and they haven't played anybody spectacular yet.
Yeah, 100%. You look at the dynamic over there at USC, it actually can be quite comparable, other than the new personnel, new coaching. It can be very comparable to Michigan. You look at their schedule, look at who they played so far, the strength of schedule, the strength of the first three, and it's just not there. And I think this is the first real team that they've played that's going to give them a true contest. Just to go over some stats here for the quarterbacks, Caleb Williams has thrown for 874 yards and 8 touchdowns this year with a completion rate of 75% for the Trojans, while Chance Nolan of Oregon State has passed for 746 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So you're going to have a battle through the air. Caleb Williams is a guy, he's a multi-tool that can kind of do it all, get it done through the air. You can run the ball. You can obviously hand the ball off. And there's somewhat of a mentorship going on with Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, and that was even happening over at Oklahoma. So there's a lot of similarities here, but the question still remains, when will the hype run out for USC and the Trojans? I think it could happen this weekend. Don't call me Nostradamus, but I'm going to try to call the future here. Just for some safety, give me Oregon State +6, and I'm going to lock that one in. So
correction, it's Corvallis. I was thinking of Pullman, where Washington State is.
I knew who you're talking about.
Playing, who also, I love Washington State. I think they can beat Oregon at home.
Yeah. Hey, that's going to be a hell of a matchup.
Because also Bo Nix is terrible. Like he had a great game. I don't trust Bo Nix. I will never put money on Bo Nix in an away stadium in Pullman. They're +7. I think I love Washington State.
Do you really? I mean, that's a matchup right there. That's a matchup. That's a matchup you gotta be watching, and you gotta be tracking that one down. I guess which way you got that one? While we're on the topic,
I have Washington State +7. I think they can win it outright. They've been a really good team all year. I mean, they beat whatever you call it, a Wisconsin team that's kind of built around how Wisconsin teams are built. Beat them, and you have Oregon coming off that huge win we talked about against BYU. They're coming to Washington State, and they're giving 7 points. You have to take it.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I'm still doubtful too. You look at these teams that have new regimes. I mean, even going as far to talk about LSU, Brian Kelly over there. You talk about Billy Napier. Just talk about him in Florida and the Gators. You already see these holes in the dynamics. You see the holes in the chemistry between a lot of these teams, and it's very evident. And the proof is going to come out in the pudding, either earlier than later, or it's going to come up at some point, because they just have to go through those growing pains. And to get better and to get more acclimated with the program, they're going to have to go through those, because they don't understand the program. There's no way for them to understand the programs unless they've been there for, I would say, for at least a year. So we're going to see a lot of these flukes. They're going to be so-called flukes, but they're going to be expected. So got to watch out for them, especially betting the lines. 100%. So last one on the docket. Save the best for last for both of us Sparties over here. Minnesota versus MSU. MSU +3 over under 51. They like that +3 for MSU, and it's very enticing. But why do you think they did that, Chuck?
Because we look so bad. I mean, Minnesota has been a non-talked about bone saw this past 3 weeks. Albeit they played nobody, but I think they they're in top of the country in defense. They're in top of the country in offense. They've just been killing teams. They've been running all over. They've got the veteran Tanner Morgan. He can play. I think what it comes down to is they don't trust Sparty. I think it's weird that I thought we'd be dogs. In all honesty, I didn't think it'd be 3. Um, but I don't know. The line's really weird. I had a few drinks last night, and obviously I convinced myself just to sprinkle the money line because, I mean, you have to. I think I see a very clear way how Michigan State wins this game, but it's going to be a battle. They're going to want to control the clock. We're going to want to control the clock. It comes down to if we can be way more methodical and effective once we get the ball. We can't have any stupid turnovers because Minnesota is a team that's meant to bury you. If you give them the ball, they're going to take an 8-minute drive to get 6. But also,
Yeah.
I don't trust them. I don't trust Minnesota. I think all of their stats are inflated unless I haven't watched a ton of them because they've played literally nobody. But I don't know. PJ Flex didn't try to row the boat. I hope Mel lit a fire underneath their ass. I mean, that's all you can say. There's not much analysis in this one. It's more just I bet with my heart that I think we can pull this off. I think our backs are. I'm not saying season's on the line, but 2-2 going into Big Ten play and with the gauntlet of a schedule we have is disastrous.
Oh, yeah, I'll finish what you're going to say. Our backs are against the wall, and I think Sparty plays its best football when their backs are against the wall. So that's why I'm excited. That's why I'm really, enthused for a matchup like this, going into the meat and potatoes, into conference play. But you're right. Who's going to come out and show up? Who's going to come out in this game and really get the job done? Because I would put Minnesota in the same level, in the same tier as a team like Purdue, a team like Iowa, even, Northwestern in their heyday. And those are the teams that have been the biggest threats to Michigan State, especially when they're trying to make a run and trying to make the CFP down at the end of the season. So there's a couple of these factors that they got to watch out for. Obviously, don't treat it like it's nothing, but you gotta take these teams seriously. Especially there's no days off from here on out, as far as I'm concerned, for the Spartans.
Oh no, Maryland's gonna be. I'm not looking ahead, but Maryland's scary next week. But I don't know. I think it's gonna be a really good game. I'll obviously be there. I think it's gonna be a game where you're never comfortable. Hopefully, like I don't think we can blow them out. I hope they can't blow us out. I think we're just gonna stay really close to that number the whole time. I'm gonna go money line. I don't want to make money off of losing a game by 2. That's just who I am with Michigan State. I told myself I should stop betting Michigan State, and then you're like, well, we're gonna win, so you might as well make some coins off of it. And
Yeah. Well, see, we know how Michigan State can play. We've seen it happen with our own eyes. We know a lot of these guys personally. So it's like, you know, you just go out there and play football. All you got to do is go out there and play football. And obviously, it's easier said than done. We're not in that locker room pregame. We're not, on the sidelines when the times are tough. We're not the ones getting burnt on the corners or, down across the middle of the field. But regardless, you got to show up. You got to play, especially Big Ten playing the deep end. You gotta get the job done. Period.
I think that's the difference with Mel and the last Antonio years. I think he has guys up. I think with short-term memory, we forget about it, we move on, and you just fight and for as much as you can.
You have to. At this point, especially, you have to. Well, good deal. We'll be pulling for the Sparties this weekend. I got a money line too, so it's just one of those things. You got to take a money line, and if you lose the money line, even if you lose by 2 and the spread covers, you're still happy you took the money line because you don't want to lose by 2 and still win the bet. That's just how it is. So it's a different mentality in East Lansing. I'll just say that from firsthand experience, but that's the reality of the situation, and I'm excited. Pull for Sparty this week in the woodshed. So we'll wrap it up here. Any final statements, Chuck, before we sign off today?
I like Georgia State over 63.5 tonight.
Georgia State,
Coastal Carolina. I think kicks at 6:30, 7:30, 7:30.
Okay.
So in a couple minutes, if you're watching this live. I also kind of like Georgia State plus 2.5. Coastal's undefeated, so it's 3-0 versus 0-3, but Coastal's been on the ropes in every game they played, and Georgia State's been in every game. I think it's gonna be a good one. It'll be a fun little Thursday night. So hopefully I go 2-0. So like this week starts off on a good note. So if it starts bad, it all might waterfall from there.
Chuck's going with the Thursday night teaser game, the game that just tickles you a little bit before the weekend. So, hey, he's got the over. We're pulling for the over. Coastal Carolina's been on the ropes, but they can still put points on the board. We know they can. And yeah, I like that bet. Good deal. Awesome. So, Chuck, I want to thank you for hopping on the GCP tonight. Thank you for giving your insights, giving your opinions, your thoughts, your nice words. And hopefully the people out there are going to take that into account when they look at these lines this week. Take everything with a grain of salt and do your research. But the bottom line is, if you don't do your research, you might as well not even pick up your phone, might as well not, visit a sports book. You got to do your research on this. But at the end of the day, even if you do your research, these people and these players, these teams, they have to show up and they have to take the field expecting to win. They have to be expecting to win and getting the job done. So we'll see what happens this week, and we'll pull for the best. Make sure you're checking out all of our social media. Check out the Twitter at Gin Pros on Twitter, at Gin Sports Network on IG. Make sure to check out all the links in the description of this podcast. Thank you so much for everybody tuning in. And thank you for consuming this podcast wherever you watch or listen to our shows. So thank you guys again so much. I'm your host, as always, John J. II. This has been the Gin College Podcast. Have a great night.